Hey, what's going on? This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. Thanks to all of the OGs and converts who reached out to me over the month of November looking to get into their next vehicle through Ford. It means so much. When you sponsor our sponsor, you are supporting us. Mike in Buffalo, not quite snowed in where he is, but his neighbors, including those Bills trying to get their game in tonight. Norman London, thanks so much for being here December 1st, 2024. We're into the final month of the season. The Leafs 8-2 in their past 10, second in the Atlantic, a 5-3 winner over the Tampa Bay Lightning last night. A lot of things going on with this team, Mike. The goaltending's great. The defense looks awesome. Mitch is playing well. Nylander's playing well. Matthew Knies is really, really stepping up. Austin Matthews has returned. Geez, where do you want to start here, my friend? And oh, by the way, happy belated American Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Thank you, Norm. And this is one of those weekends where like everything slows down scheduling wise. And it's just, for myself, it's just family stuff and food, and it's just too much. And
it's always too much for you, Mike.
Please. I can't wait. I can't wait until Boxing Day is here, so I can just say the holidays are behind us.
Our resident curmudgeon.
Yes, exactly.
Michael Paul.
Yeah, but to the Leafs, this is a joyful season, at least has been so far. And you can't. There are not many things to complain about. I'll find some, but start with the goaltending. I thought over the last week or so, it sort of started to reveal itself. And I'm not saying he's playing badly. In fact, he's playing well, but it's been my assertion since the beginning of the season that Anthony Stolarz is at best a 1B and not a number one. And I there are people saying, well, he's going to be the third goalie for Team USA for the Four Nations. It's like, cool your jets. He's having a good year. I think it's more a factor of the Leafs defensively are playing wonderfully. But I do think that you've seen over the last few starts that Joseph Woll, now that the health situation or, that he's back to 100%, and I'm sure Leaf fans are knocking on wood as I'm saying this, he's played really well. He's had a shutout. He's had a couple really good games. Last night, the 3 goals that he gave up late, I think one went off a skate. One was a one-timer. The other one was he made.
Yeah, but he made a huge save in the dying seconds. It could have been 5-4. It could have been a different outcome. So, yeah, Joseph Woll played really, really well last night. Are you developing a bit of a narrative here, Mike? I know your team Woll. We think he could be the goaltender of the future if he can stay healthy. But, man, what is wrong with him and Anthony Stolarz just kind of alternating and being successful? The Leafs have allowed the fewest goals against in the NHL. Okay, a plus 13 that's right up there with a lot of teams right now who, they don't score a ton at this point, but, Austin Matthews has been gone. What's wrong with just doing the do and keeping it going the way it's going right now?
With myself, everything is about the playoffs. And you cannot have 2 goaltenders in the playoffs. You go with one. You go with, if you look at Bobrovsky last year, they 2 years ago they started with Alex Lyon because he carried them to the playoffs. But then when they went to Bobrovsky, they stayed with Bobrovsky, and they went with Bobrovsky the entire season, the entire playoff season. Traditionally, unless injury is a factor, you go with one goaltender. Last year, had Joseph Woll not been hurt in Game 7, he would have been the guy that took over in Game 5, won Game 5 and Game 6, and who knows what would have happened if he was in goal for Game 7. We do know, and I'm not putting it all on Samsonov, but Samsonov, I think people realized and people, got the feeling that if they were going to lose that game if Samsonov was in goal. The whole thing right now is laying the groundwork for the playoffs. And sure, you want to go 40-40, split it down the middle. you can do that. But I don't think you're doing yourself a favor if you're the Maple Leafs in determining who is the goalie that you're going to start on game one. And I think that's the main factor. You have to find out whether Joseph Woll can stay healthy and can take this team on their shoulders.
That's the thing. Concurrently, you have Anthony Stolarz, who wants to prove he's more than a 25-game-a-season guy. And you have Joseph Woll, who wants to prove that he can stay healthy enough to be someone you can seriously consider to be your number one until we get to the point where one emerges over the other, or one will have to take the reins heading into the biggest part and most crucial period of the season. As long as we have two of them, Mike, and they're playing the way they're playing right now, and the Leafs are as defensively responsible as they've demonstrated so far through the season, these are good times, right, Mike? It's all about the playoffs. But between now and the playoffs, I want to enjoy what I'm seeing. I want to feel as positive as I've ever been going in to the second season. Anthony Stolarz, 13 games played, 233 goals against, 921 save percentage. Joseph Woll outdoes him by a couple percentage points, a 923 save percentage with 213 goals against, man. By any means necessary, and these two guys are necessarily serious about what's going on with their own personal careers, and it's the byproduct for the Maple Leafs is success, 8-2 in their last 10.
Yeah, I mean, they've played really well, but let's not deceive ourselves to in terms of the reason for their success. They're playing well, there's no doubt. But the whole reason for their success is, shock, folks, the Leafs defense is much, much better, is much, much deeper, is making so many fewer mistakes. And that's what happens when you add a veteran defenseman like Chris Tanev,
who scored his first goal in forever.
Right. Who's never gonna confuse. You're never gonna get confused with Bobby Orr, but he did score his first goal as a Leaf last night on a nice shot inside the pole. That gave him a 2-0 lead. But he provides them, and now it appears that Craig Berube has settled on having a shutdown pairing between him and Jake McCabe, which is a matchup pairing against the other team's top forwards. And then you have Oliver Ekman-Larsson joining Morgan Rielly, and that's a more dynamic offensive line. Mm-hmm. They're not going to, Rielly's going to be the point guy in the power play. Ekman-Larsson's the point guy in the second power play. They're offensive minded, but now they're both experienced enough in their 30s that they're not going to make as many defensive mistakes. And then you have a bottom pairing with, it's either going to be Benoit, Timmins, Hakanpää. That has been solid, and Timmins has not been a revelation, but again, Timmins is sort of the Joseph Woll of defensemen.
Don't sleep on Simon Benoit. He made some great plays last night against Tampa. Some nice physical contact with the guys he's been covering. Again, right? You need players to reemerge and to emerge, and you're seeing the reemergence of Augello. You're seeing the emergence of guys like Benoit and like you mentioned, Connor Timmins, and then Chris Tanev. It doesn't really matter where he plays. The guy is just he's just absolutely money. This is the Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford in London, Ontario, oakridgeford.com. December is going to be another really big month in the car business. Lots of 24s to get rid of. At Norman Oak Ridge Ford is how you're going to get a hold of me for your next car deal, whether it's a truck lease or you're looking for an Escape. The Explorer is really the best full-size SUV on the market right now. At Norman Oak Ridge Ford, you got to get at me. OGs and Conference reach me every single day to ask questions, to look into deals, and we get things done for them. So I hope you're the next that we can help out. And when you do that, you're helping Mike and myself. Nice to see so many people in the chat today. Apologies for not having the Sunday Spectacular this morning. Other things going on, but we are here now. Mike, pick it up.
Well, the other thing that I think was proved last night, and he was out for a few games after getting waylaid by Zach Whitecloud is how important Matthew Knies has become to this team. He scores the opening goal on a tip. He goes to the front of the net. I think Craig Berube may be whistling or whispering, in his ear and saying, "Keep your head up, kid," because he gets waylaid by Sam Bennett a couple years ago in the playoffs. Gets knocked out of the playoffs. Earlier now, White Cloud catches him with his head down, and I still think it was a suspendable hit, and that it deserved more than a no call. It should have been at least a major and maybe a 1 or 2 game suspension.
Different when it's the Maple Leafs. We all know that, Mike.
Right, but the point here is they need him in the lineup. He's a big-bodied power forward, and sometimes bigger forwards, as we've seen with Slavkovsky in Montreal and Eric Lindros and a few others, big players normally don't know how and are not aware of being hit.
Let me ask you a question. How does he continue to assert himself and develop and become the kind of player that many of us believe, and I'm sure he himself can become, but also preserve himself?
Well, that's the big question. Can he do that? I mean, in the off season, he put on, I think it was 20 pounds of muscle, didn't lose any speed.
It's it's what he's doing out there and his sometimes lack of awareness, but he's going to have to learn the hard way.
Right. Well, I think he has, because he got his bell wrong, and now it's like when you're in the neutral zone, keep your head up. You're going to have to be more aware, because they need you in the lineup. You're going to be a target, because now teams know, well, okay, we've hit him once, we've hit him a second time, he's susceptible to this. That's what happened with Lindros, and then Lindros had the concussion issues where there was just something that he could not recover from. This is the second concussion that Knies has had in 3 years. So hopefully this is not a trend, but he's going to have to be more aware that he's got a target on his back. So he's just have to keep his eyes open and make sure that he just does not allow somebody to open up the Bombay doors on him.
It's nice to see everybody here. Thank you so much. Like the content, subscribe to the channel. Without you, we really don't exist. Gregory Seaborn, Tanev and McCabe are top defensive pair in the league. I mean, we can call them that right now. They're playing really, really responsibly. And the show last night, intermission, a lot of talk about what's going on with the Maple Leafs. There were some stats that really honed in on just how much this team is taking the defensive aspect of the game as seriously as it ever has. And the defense ability to clear pucks and to mitigate the kinds of disaster that the team had to deal with on many a night last season. So again, it's personnel, right? It's experience, and it's strategy. I mean, they're employing the right way to play, and they have the right people to do it.
Yes, they do. Now the thing is, they weathered a particular storm. We'll talk about Matthews here in a second, but in that stretch, I'm pretty sure that they said it was like they had 9 even strength goals over that 9-game stretch. They kept the goals against down. They scored on the power play. I think they even scored a shorthanded goal. But when you keep the goals against down, it's easier to win when you're limited offensively, and you're limited offensively because you had 8 forwards on the lineup. So now Matthews is back. We don't, at least I haven't heard it. We still have not heard for sure what exactly the injury is. I've heard everything from back to shoulder to whatever. It doesn't matter now that he's back, but it does matter in terms of whether it comes back or not. He is going to be front and center for Team USA at the Four Nations face-off, which is something that honestly I could give a crap less
Right.
about, because it's the Olympics. I understand this is an NHLPA sponsored event that's basically akin to an all-star game.
Right.
And it's a precursor to the Olympics. But does Vegas want Jack Eichel getting hurt in the Four Nations face-off? Does the Leafs will be they have exposure because they can have at least 4, maybe 5 players on those 4 teams. So I mean, it's
Mike. How long was Matthews out for?
He was out for a little over 3 weeks, 9 games.
But during that time, while he was missed, the team had its collective head down and just played, right? I mean, you have a new head coach who's not making any excuses or taking any bullshit from anybody. The team has a mission. Whether Matthews is in the lineup or not, it has to continue to play. We don't know what the hell's going on with the guy. He could be gone again for another 3 weeks, or he could be cooled. At the end of the day, whether he's in the lineup or not, it will make a difference ultimately. But the mission continues, and the team without Matthews still has enough firepower to manage throughout this regular season, should finish well. And, hopefully Matthews returns and everybody's available for the playoffs. It's just, it's not, the team's success is not incumbent on the relevance or the presence of any particular player. Honestly, Mike, there's enough of a group, enough of a mosaic, and I use that word a lot, enough of a collective to to succeed this season, especially if you're playing the right way. And that defensively responsible strategy and just that philosophy, if you can play like that, you can interchange players as long as you have the right people fundamentally and centrally on board. And I mean, so far through 23 games, the Maple Leafs have shown that this is what it's all about. Will we stay on this track, stay on this positive course? I mean, I hope so, but that remains to be seen.
Well, I'm not sure I buy into that. I mean, yes, in the regular season and over the last 3 weeks, yes, they've been able to survive and thrive without Austin Matthews. I don't know.
He's got to be able to play, though, Mike, and be.
I know, but
if he's reticent or he's hesitant.
But the whole point here, Norm, is, again, everything with me is focused on the postseason. This team needs Austin Matthews to be healthy and to be effective to win. We saw what happened last year without Nylander for a stretch, without Matthews for a stretch. They lost to a team that I think they were better than, right, in the Boston Bruins, because they could not score in the playoffs. And that's one of the things that I think we'll be focusing on going between now and the trade deadline in March. I think it's March the 7th, is offensive depth, because right now it looks like, and anything can change with one injury, it looks like they're going to have enough defensive depth on hand to be able to. They have 8 defensemen. They have a Matt Benning who's has NHL experience down with the Marlies, and they have another Topi Niemela might be able to step up in a pinch. But defensively, I don't think that Brad Treliving is going to have to go out there and waste assets in terms of draft capital to get a defenseman at the deadline. He may have to up front. You've had injuries with Kampf and Domi and then Matthews and Matthew Knies, and you've had 8 forwards at one point, and you had to sign Alex Nylander from an AHL to an NHL deal. This team, I do not think, can survive losing 8 forwards like they have in a playoff scenario where teams will zero in on William Nylander and Mitch Marner and John Tavares. You need more weapons for the long haul. So do I think that they can survive without Matthews for a stretch? Sure. In the playoffs, not a chance.
It's all about getting there, like the content. Subscribe to the channel. Andrew Wallace, Matty can still hit 45 goals with about 60 games to play. I mean, that's a goal every 2 games. I mean, Matthews has scored at a more prolific pace than that, Mike. But, I'm kind of looking at the way he was going last night. One, he's got to be healthy just to have him in the lineup, even if he's not scoring like he has throughout his career. Just to have him be there, the way he's become more responsible defensively, and his presence. I mean, it's absolutely vital. If anybody can go on a torrid scoring pace, it's him. But I think, again, Mike, they need more from Austin Matthews than just him lighting the lamp. He's got to be a leader. He's got to be a 200-foot kind of guy, which he's developed into. And again, it's just the moral idea, the morale that he can bring to the team, being there night in and night out. Let's just see how many games he can string together, and if he's ultimately healthy, I mean, that's a win for the team. Mike, you want to talk a little bit about Fraser Minten and how he's applied to the group, and what you're thinking about him in terms of a third line center? Or do you think he can be the guy, or is Brad Treliving going to have to start looking around and potentially make a deal to solidify a team that's already got quite a few pieces?
I think that the Leafs wanted to give Minten more of a window in terms of a lead up playing with the Marlies, but the injury situation lent itself to the fact that they had to call him up. Kampf is out, Domi was out. I mean, my assertion is Max Domi is not a center. Max Domi has played third line center, but he is not a center. I think he is most effective playing on the wing. If they play him on the wing, now the thing is, it's like he plays primarily the right side, but he has played some left. And on the right side last year, when they had Tyler Bertuzzi playing with him and Matthews, that was a very effective line, and he was a playmaking winger. I think that's where he will benefit this team the most. So they have to look at options. I do not think David Kampf moving up as a third line center is going to work. He just does not have the offensive ability anymore. Minten, I think he's got enough offensive chops. I think that the worry is, you're talking about a kid who's 20 years old, and do you think he's ready for the crucible of the NHL, of the Stanley Cup playoffs? He may get a longer look here at the NHL while Kampf and Domi are out. But even if he doesn't, even if he goes down to the Marlies and plays a significant stretch, he may go a long way to proving whether he is ready to take on that role. Now, I think, they would be smart to get some insurance.
Right.
Somebody said you put up somebody who's saying, JT is, he's got to cool down. I mean, John Tavares, if he re-signs with Toronto, is going to take a lesser contract. So I don't think that's going to be a factor. But going forward in terms of the deadline, you've got two offensive centers in Tavares and Matthews. The third line guy does not necessarily have to be an offensive driver. Like somebody mentioned Brock Nelson. I don't know if that's the way that they're going to go. I mean, the guy I keep targeting in terms of an addition at the deadline might be a Yanni Gourde, like somebody who has Stanley Cup winning experience, who can contribute on the PK, who's got, a lot of qualities that you could use in a scenario like against a Tampa or a Boston in the first round of the playoffs. What Ryan O'Reilly did when he was added is something that a Yanni Gourde with his experience could provide. So we'll see if that's the direction they go.
Isn't it nice that we're talking about a successful team that looks to augment a pretty complete lineup, right, Mike? You could take what you've got, interchange it, cross your fingers and hope things work out. But it doesn't seem like anything this team can do right now will result in a disastrous run. Again, it's personnel, and it's also where this group is in the chronology of its timeline. As Austin Matthews drafted, scores the 4 goals in his first game, has 300 plus goals for his career, one of the greatest American scorers. Nylander is scoring like he's never scored before. Marner playing for a contract. Tavares with a resurgence, like the way Tanev and OEL have solidified the back end. The two goaltenders, yin and yang. Right? You've got a new head coach who wants to prove he can take a team from game 1 through game 82 through 4 rounds and win his own Stanley Cup. It's nice that we can talk about it like this, Mike. And you and I have shit on this team over and over again, and we reflect the OGs and converts in a lot of ways. But really, there's not a lot to be negative about. A couple things that stick in my craw: not showing up for the Ottawa game, not taking that piece of shit Ridley Grigg out, and really not stepping up against Florida earlier this week. Now, was that a game of sentimentality? Was that an indication of Florida still being 2-3 steps ahead of the Maple Leafs? We could draw those conclusions if we wanted to, but 8-2 in the last 10, not giving up too many goals. I would like to have seen a little bit more against them, but I mean, there will be other encounters with the Florida Panthers. Last couple of words to you, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I didn't take the loss to Florida with, for one simple reason. I think the fact that the lack of depth up front because of the injuries really came home when you're playing Alex Nylander and Fraser Minton and Alex Steeves against Kachuk and Verhaeghe and Reinhart. I mean, it's and that's a team that had struggled, but they still and the Leafs had caught them. They looked at that game and said, "We got to put the irons to the fire here," and they did. And they're a quality team. You can't underestimate the Florida Panthers, even though they've been weakened by defections after they won the Cup.
Right.
The Leafs have 3 of those players on their team. And I personally, I'm not a sentimental person when it comes to hockey. It's like, who plays? The player that gives you the best chance to win. They played Joseph Woll in 2 games against St. Louis because he's from St. Louis, and he lost both games. Anthony Stolarz played against Florida because he got his Stanley Cup ring, and it was the sort of like, okay, he's coming back to. I don't care.
Like the ceremonial stuff. Berube's that kind of guy. He got it out of the way, right?
Yeah, I don't care. Whoever gives you the best chance to win. And Joseph Woll had played 2 great games in a row, and they go to Stolarz in that game. I don't care. Whoever gives you the best chance. If it's game 1 of the playoffs right now, who are you starting? If it's that team you're playing against, to me, it's Woll, but it's like, okay, so, and not to say Stolarz was responsible for the loss, but they gave up 5 goals in that game, which is.
If we don't overthink it, the coach rolls the dice. It doesn't work. We're going to criticize. If it does work, we move on.
Right. But, I mean, there are very few things to be negative about with the way that this team has played so far. So, now we just see with a busy schedule between now and, the Christmas break to see whether they can make some hay, they can stay in first place in the Atlantic. Because we know that finishing in top spot in the Atlantic Division is something that they have not been able to do, and not been able to get a easy first round matchup. And no first round matchup is easy, but it can be easier. So we'll see what happens.
Well, Andrew in the chat was wondering if, or believed, but he's also wondering if Austin Matthews can reach 40 goals this season, considering everything that he's missed. I mean, it would be quite the feat. He can get going against the Blackhawks on Monday, and then Nashville on Wednesday. A couple of teams that, you'd expect to beat, right? Yeah, you have Washington coming up and then Pittsburgh. So 3 of the next 4 games are against teams below 500. If the Leafs exemplify the upper tier of this league, like they're showing that they can, then, you got to take it to those teams that you're better than to get the 2 points and get on a run. Matthew Knies, a little more confidence. Austin Matthews, couple biscuits in the basket, a little for Woll, a little for Stolarz. Go in and beat up Washington too. I know they're hot, but this is going to be a good little test, especially coming off a week with not too many games. What's going on with you, Mike?
Oh, not much. I'll just finish off on this comment. Gorgeous Hammer in the chat. Stolarz didn't give up 4 or 5 goals against Florida. 1 was an empty net. I said the Leafs gave up 5 goals. Stolarz.
Whatever.
I'm just saying, I do not believe in sentimentality when it comes to determining who plays against who. It's like, play the best player and play whoever you think gives you the best opportunity to win. And can we please, for the love of God, stop this Sidney Crosby talk? It's not happening. They're not trading for Sidney Crosby. I understand why the guys at Overdrive, who I like, they started talking about it. It's fodder. It's not.
Wasn't Nazem Kadri coming back to the Leafs last week?
Like, yeah, please. That one. You know, please.
People like to talk about that stuff, Mike. Let them get it out of their system.
Well,
the same way that Craig Berube is going to get all the ceremonial stuff out of his system, right? I mean, it's go time. It's go time, and
just because Nazem Kadri has a book to promote, so he basically says, I'd love to come back to Toronto. Who says Toronto wants you back after you cost them 2 playoff series?
Here, Chris Daniels. We're supposed to get out of here, but Chris keeps us going. An anointed OG. Chris, nice to see you, buddy. The Leafs need to target a guy that has term and is younger, that plays center if you're going to trade futures. And that's the thing. I believe that when we get to the trade deadline, or even well before, as this team continues to pack on more assistance to help it further the cause, it's going to be names that we're not going to parade over, but may help get this team to that parade, as opposed to a big splash, somebody who comes in that we know and love or has endeared himself to us over the years, or we revere. I don't think there's, one, monetarily, I don't think it's going to work. And two, I just don't think the Leafs need anybody of that magnitude. It's the small moves, the little things that will pay dividends in the end.
Yeah, Chris, I'm not against that, but in terms of realism, I mean, do I think you're going to find a number 2 center who's on his ELC or on a second contract that they can afford to bring in? I don't think so. It's like they're not going to be able to trade for Trevor Zegras, and if all of a sudden, like, and I'm using him as an example. I mean, what would you have to give up to get a guy like a Trevor Zegras? You'd probably have to give up someone like an Easton Cowan, and I don't think that makes a lot of sense. So I think you're probably going to add somebody at a lower cost that's going to help you in the playoffs, and then you're going to see what you have in the organization next year, and then maybe you address something in free agency to see if you can address center going forward long term, because Tavares, if he does stay with the team, probably moves to the wing in a year or two.
OG's Converse, like the content, subscribe to the channel. We really do appreciate you being here. If you're one of our American viewers, happy belated U.S. Thanksgiving. I know you're on the tail end of it. The reality sets back in tomorrow, but head down, grind it out. Christmas is coming. We really do appreciate everything you guys do for us in terms of support. OakRidgeFord.com is where you're going to find your next car. At Norman Oak Ridge Ford is how you're going to reach out to talk a little bit more about your next car. I'm going to be the guy who ushers it through. And look out for Convo Shorts. Mike and I will break down our conversation into small pieces. When you see that stuff, guys, like it, comment, send it out. Let everybody know what we're doing here, because we have an absolute blast. Mr. Augello, enjoy the Bills game tonight. Thank you very much. Big week for the Leafs to come with lots of action. And, if we can slide a weekday show in there, a sneak show, we will do that. But if not, the Sunday Spectacular will commence in 7 days' time. For Mr. A, I'm Mr. J. The Leafs Convo for Oak Ridge Ford is out.